was when Steve Holley and Danny Lewis and I ended up getting a call from the Kinks people.
Oh, okay.
You know, I had not really met Ray and Dave before. I had been on tour supporting them again with Tommy Shaw. We had opened for the Kinks for several months on a number of tours across the country. So I got to be friendly with Jim Rodford and the other guys in their band, but never really met them. But they had committed to doing this Earth Day benefit. It was Earth Day 1992. It was at Foxborough Stadium outside Boston, which I don't even think is standing anymore. No. And they were in the middle of doing a record, a conch in London, and for this one date, it was obviously Earth Day. It was probably a charity event. They probably weren't even getting paid for it. It didn't really make a lot of sense for them to fly guys over for that, and they had asked about who were, you know, give me a good bass player, drummer, and keyboard player that could do our show. And so Steve Holley and Danny Lewis and I got the call. We went up to Boston. We rehearsed with them for a couple of days and got to hang out with them. And then did this show. And it was, I believe, April in Boston, and the weather was miserable. There was horizontal freezing rain coming into the stage, and I was woefully underdressed. But I've got Ray on one side, and I've got Dave on the other side, and I'm playing You Really Got Me to a stadium full of people, and it just was one of those, I was feeling no pain. Wow. It was just one of those really extraordinary experiences. The Kinks were the, I guess, sort of the sub-headliner. Steve Miller was actually the head headliner. And I did a date with Garland several weeks ago up in Montreal, where we opened for Steve Miller. Okay. And so I got to meet Steve after the show and had a brief chat with him. I said, you know, I have to tell you, this is actually not the first time I've had the pleasure of opening for you. And I mentioned this Kinks show. And once I mentioned this Earth Day benefit, he was like, oh my God, do you remember? And that started him off, and we had a great conversation about it. And he said it was actually like the third experience there that he had done where he was friendly with the promoter, and they, you know, he agreed to do it, but the weather was always miserable. And he said, I got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just, he was talking about how he had icicles forming on the bottom of his fingers, you know. But that Kinks thing and the Beach Boys thing, I guess, are two major standouts.